Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. Welcome. Good
Hello.
morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Hi. Wow, it's Friday.
It's Friday.
It's
It's
Friday.
Friday. Here we are,
It's
folks. Here's
excited
the
to
plan.
talk. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
the plan here, we're going to just talk a little bit. We're going to talk about our writing week. We're going to let some folks file in. If you're coming to the stream, we'll probably start the workshop in about 5 minutes so you can scroll ahead to the proper official start. But for now, let's just let some folks come in the feed. Welcome, everyone. If you're here, tell us in the comments, tell us what you're looking for in this workshop. We'll see if we can hit on it. The plan is to talk about a specific type of short story structure that Ray Bradbury uses in a recent story that we read for Story Club. In the meanwhile, Sarah, do you want to tell us who you are and how your writing
Yeah.
week was?
Well, yeah. Yeah. Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm Sarah Ray Werner. I'm a, let's see, writer and podcast producer living in the Midwestern United States. I host the Right Now podcast, which I have my merch for right here. It's Right Now with a W because puns, and that's for writers. And then I also have a fictional audio drama called Girl in Space, which I encourage you to listen to because I'm a narcissist. And yeah, I'm just I left my full-time job at a marketing firm in 2017, and since then I've been just writing full-time and making it work through freelance jobs and creative work and all sorts of things. So excited to be here today. As for how my writing week is going, I'm still working on season 2 of Girl in Space, and I've been self-sabotaging a lot this year, and we've talked a little bit about this in other workshops. And um, it's really hard to identify your own self-sabotage. So I had some wonderful friends who pointed out that I kept restarting things, and it was just a mess. So I printed out the words I'd already written. So I've got about a little over 30,000 words written, and I put them in a binder. I printed them out, put them in a binder, and gave it to Tim, my husband and creative partner. And I said, I'm not allowed to touch this binder until the entire season is done. So that's how my week is going. I'm trying to like get in my own way of getting in my own way. So wish me luck.
Sometimes those absolutes really help. Like I'm putting the binder away. I can't touch the binder.
Yep.
Tim, I have an accountability partner in this. We're not
Yep.
doing it. We're
Nope.
not doing it until this is ready. I
Right.
appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, and how about you? Who are you, and how has your writing week been?
Well, I'm Asa Merritt. I'm writing short fiction. I am on YouTube, AuthorTube here to document my journey into fiction. My background is in screenwriting. My week has been really solid. I have found a lot of success live streaming, Sarah. It's been really useful. That hasn't really been part of my artistic
Mm.
practice nor content creation practice, if you will. But I'm kind of vibing with the accountability. It's like nice to be in space with other people, like Mateo Leon Rodriguez, another writer here on YouTube. How's everyone doing? Welcome, Mateo. Welcome. So yeah, I don't know. It was actually a really good week. I just kept turning on the camera and kept writing and pushed some stories forward. And I feel good about this week. And I feel particularly, I felt good preparing for this workshop also. That was
Mm.
like a really rewarding moment. If you're new to the stream here, Sarah and I run a story club on Thursday, a horror story club where we're reading one short story a week from this anthology called The Dark Descent. And it is from this anthology that the inspiration for today's workshop comes. One of the stories was The Crowd by Ray Bradbury. So in preparation for today, late last night, I went through the story again, read it thoroughly, quietly, with my pen in hand, saw things that I didn't see the first time. So that was a
Mm.
really nice part of the writing week as well. Yeah. Anyway, well, welcome everyone. We will get started here with this presentation. And you might want a notebook, you might want a pen and paper, you might want to just vibe. We'll try to say everything out loud, so if you're just listening, you can hang. And welcome. Here we go. All right. Okay. Oh, also, there's a Discord. We're calling
There's
it
a Discord.
the Public Writers Workshop. It's a really wonderful space where you can come and meet other talented, ambitious, rigorous, warm, kind writers like yourself. Great things are happening over there. I'm going to share the link. And one thing that's particularly useful in these workshops is that sometimes you want to share something that's a little bit longer than you can share in the comments of YouTube. We've all faced the frustration of YouTube comment limits. So you can join the Discord if you feel compelled to share. All right. I'm going to take this little banner down about workshop starting because we're starting and jump right in here. Here's the agenda. Okay. Yapping. We did that. Objective. I'm going to share some goals for this workshop here shortly. We're going to talk about Bradbury. We're going to talk about, called it a map, a story structure map that you can use for your stories that Bradbury used in this story, one that we're going to try to test for ourselves in the course of this workshop. A few other tips, and then we're going to get down to it. That's the agenda. The objective for today is to leave with a new template, formula, archetype of a story structure. As we know, there are limitations to these kind of formulas or kind of conceptual frameworks, but they're also super useful. And the way I see it is the more of these I can have zooming around in the back of my mind, the more naturally a powerful structure will emerge in my own writing. And we hope that we leave. Sarah and I are going to be doing this workshop. We're all doing it together here with an original and sound idea for a story. The idea being a story concept that has a beginning, middle, and end, that has an arc that can sustain itself dramatically. And if you're just hanging out, you're welcome. If you see that red box there at the bottom right-hand corner, feel free to hang out and work on another work in progress. We just, we're here together hanging out on a Friday morning. Okay, Mr. Ray Bradbury. I have to admit, this was my first story of reading Ray Bradbury a few months ago, and what a discovery he is. I'm just going to read this very quick description of who we are learning from today. Ray Bradbury was a prolific American author, best known for short stories, which blended science fiction, fantasy, and horror genres with a poetic style and social commentary, explored themes of humanity, technology, memory, dark aspects of human psychology. He wrote over 600 short stories, many of which were collected in famous volumes like The Martian Chronicles and The Illustrated Man. When I told you, Sarah, that I was like, oh, I just discovered Ray Bradbury, you said, you are in for an all caps treat. Yeah. So that's like some foundation here. We're going to get into the case study today, which is a story called The Crowd. And if you didn't read this story or you haven't read this story, don't worry, we're going to break it down. But just before we dive into that particularly, Sarah, I know you've read a lot of Bradbury, and how do you feel about him as a short story writer? What's kind of your personal visceral engagement with this, before we dive into the brass tacks?
That's such a great question. I discovered Ray Bradbury and I didn't know it when I was in, I think, middle school. I pretty much lived at the library. It was down the street from our house. And I was slowly understanding that I liked weird genre fiction. And so I picked up this book called The Martian Chronicles. And I didn't know what I was getting into. Before this, I was a big fan of like the Babysitter's Club and like Animorphs and, that kind of I don't know, just kind of fun pop genre literature. And reading Ray Bradbury left an impression on me because it was so radically different. It felt more grown up than what I had read. And it really interested me that stories could be told like at this sort of, I don't know, higher level. And it really stuck with me. I bought a copy of the book. We were super poor growing up, and so we couldn't buy a lot of books, hence the library. But I bought a copy of The Martian Chronicles at Borders, the bookstore that used to exist. And so that's been my experience with Ray Bradbury. I've always held him up as a sort of rule breaker. He's always been, I think, despite his popularity, I think he's always been a little bit of an iconoclast. He and other writers like Kurt Vonnegut really felt like they were going against the grain while also creating incredibly popular and iconic works. And so so this was my first time reading The Crowd. I'd read a ton of his other stories before, um, but it was cool to read a story with fresh eyes for this workshop and for our discussion a few weeks ago. I'm just really struck continually by how fresh his language is, how rich and masterful his voice comes through. He knows exactly when to provide you with the character's internal thoughts and insights. The stories are very rich and character driven. And I also just really appreciate the beauty of his language. Growing up, Ray Bradbury read poetry every day. And he, when asked about, where are you getting this beautiful voice from? He's like, I, grew up on a diet of poetry. And so that's why, in doing this story club and so many other things, it's so important to like take a look at like what are we reading? What are we putting in here? Because that's kind of what tends to come out. And Ray Bradbury is such a good example of that. So I could keep going, but I think that
That's perfect. Thank
you
you.
don't need
Thank you
like a book
for
report on him.
thank you for sharing that. That is
Yeah.
such a vivid relationship. I'm so grateful you shared that.
Yeah.
So today, we are going to talk about mostly one of his stories. We might bring some others into the conversation, but the one we're going to speak about most critically and engage with, deep dive with, is this story called The Crowd. So I'm just going to read this short summary, and then we'll talk about the various beats of this story, see how this story functions, what the spine is, what the structure is, and then see if we can put that to use. In Ray Bradbury's The Crowd, a man named Spallner survives a car crash, only to find a strange crowd has materialized instantly around him. He becomes obsessed with this peculiar, quickly gathering group, investigating accidents and finding that the same faces are always present. He eventually realizes the crowd is made up of victims from past accidents who are doomed to haunt accident scenes. Gosh, it just really, we've talked about the elevator pitch, and you could sell this movie in an elevator. I think it's so specific and vivid, right?
It
So
is.
this is the story that we're going to read today, and just again, additional context. If you haven't read this story, you might be able to find it online. It is short. It is a short story, and really kind of a masterclass in structure. So. I've broken this story. Oh, I didn't get my numbers right, but I broke this story into 6 beats.
I got you.
2
Hold on.
slides of 3. So these are the first 3 beats that exist in this story. And again, this is kind of just sharing this as a breakdown of one story that could be applied to many stories and could be borrowed as a source of inspiration and brainstorming. I'm trying to crank out as many short stories as I can right now. So my engagement with this is like, if I can get kind of a basic spine that I can latch onto and then apply my own creativity or imagination to, then great. And so that's what I'm hoping to do here for you today. So what kicks this story off is an event. You might have heard of this. I see a wave. Someone here.
Sorry,
Hi,
Laura.
all.
Laura just
Laura,
arrived. Hello.
hi all. Welcome, Laura Huntress. Laura, I was going to DM you if I could share what you were sharing in the Discord. Let me know if you're cool with that, because it's very exciting. The event, the kickoff event. So in screenwriting books, you might see this as the inciting incident or the catalyst. I went to a screenwriting program here in Mexico City where I live, and they call it the detonante. The detonator is what they call this beat of the story in Spanish. Isn't that cool?
I like that.
And, usually this comes 15 to 20 minutes into a movie. On a short story, sometimes we can launch with the event, with the inciting incident. And that is exactly what happens here in this story. We start with a car crash. And just for fun here, because it is so vivid, I thought that I would just read the beginning of this story. So cozy up here. This is Ray Bradbury, The Crowd. I'm just going to read the first couple paragraphs. Mr. Spallner put his hands over his face. There was the feeling of movement in space, the beautifully tortured scream, the impact and tumbling of the car with wall, through wall, over and down like a toy, and him hurled out of it. Then silence. The crowd came running. Faintly where he lay, he heard them running. He could tell their ages and their sizes by the sound of their numerous feet over the summer grass and on the lined pavement and over the asphalt street and picking through the cluttered bricks to where his car hung half into the night sky, still spinning its wheels with a senseless centrifuge. So this is the opening paragraph of The Crowd, the story that we're going to gut today and unpack and everything else. This is so vivid, and we just start so in medias res, in the center of things, in the action, and the event is a great way to start a story. It's how this story starts. If you know the other well-known, hang on, I have the book. If you know Tananarive Due, who is a prolific short story writer, she is a famous spec-fic Afrofuturist writer. She writes tons of good, juicy horror short stories as well. Her recommendation in a class I took around the beginning of a short story is to start with a mini crisis. And that is just another way of saying the same thing here. Okay, so just a very quick congratulations to Laura Huntress. Laura has been part of the community here for some time, is a writer working hard, and just got a second round notice for a submission that she sent to Orion's Belt. You know, this story didn't make it, but a second round at Orion's Belt is very impressive. That's a pro market. It's a very, very competitive market. So shout out, Laura. And I think some of that might have happened, at least at some point, Laura, you might have been putting in some time on that story here with us and then in the community. So that's super cool. Just wanted to uplift that today.
Yay! We're so excited.
It's great stuff. So that's how this story launches. We're just, it's like an action movie, right? It's like a chase, except it's a crash, and we're right there. And the second sort of structural beat of this story is what I'm calling the recognition that something is awry. Essentially, he starts noticing specific faces that have these little details that are a little weird. There's like this kid with freckles. There's this old guy with a crinkly lip. And what's happening here is classic horror stuff. We are moving from the world of the normal to the world of the strange, right? We are crossing into an unreal world at some level. This is kind of the mark of speculative fiction. The event sets us on that trajectory. The recognition of faces is like him recognizing that we are no longer in the normal world. So, next, lots of congrats coming in.
Yeah, I love this.
If you're new to the stream, folks, these are all where this is part of the community here, and a huge goal of these streams is to build community, and it's just so great to be in process with y'all. Congrats again, Laura. Part 3, structural beat 3 would be the obsession. So the crash happens, we are thrown into a story. There is a recognition that all is not right with the world. And then our character becomes obsessed about what is not right with the world. And this is what drives them, right? This is kind of the driving force that directs our protagonists through the story. This classic idea. This is a classic short story. Classic dramaturgy here, right? And that's why we're kind of talking about it, because so many stories don't fit into these easy formulas. And not that this story is formulaic per se, but there's stuff here that, like, we know a good protagonist, an interesting protagonist, makes decisions, and this obsession is what leads our character to make certain decisions which lead them down a bad path. Just for folks who might not have read the story, Sarah, do you want to kind of walk us through some of these beats in the actual story?
Yeah.
What does he do with this upset? What does he do? I mentioned how he saw those faces. What does he do with that information? Who is this?
It's so interesting. Yeah. So Mr. Spallner is an office worker. We don't know a whole lot about him, but He echoes, I think, something that happens to a lot of us, especially if something very unusual happens. In this case, he feels like something is deeply wrong, something is off. And that really, at least for me, triggered a recognition of times that I had done this myself. And so he realizes there's something wrong. I can't put my finger on it. And when he's in the hospital, he realizes that the wheels of the car were still spinning and the crowd had arrived while the wheels were still spinning. And he's like, where did they come from? The streets were dark. It was nighttime. I was in the middle of nowhere. Milliseconds after my car flipped over, there was a crowd around me that is very upsetting and strange. And one of the most interesting things about a story, whether it's a short story or a novel, is we want to understand how other people work. That is a deep need in our hearts and our minds as human beings. And so when you have a character like this who is obsessed with something, it's very easy for us to also latch onto that obsession. And I found myself like this reading this almost felt like a true crime documentary. It's not structured like that necessarily, but the going through old newspaper clippings. So quickly backing up, Mr. Spallner realizes that the crowd had several very distinctive faces and later sees several of those people in another car crash that he witnesses and starts following this obsession. He starts following this gut feeling that something is very wrong with a capital W. And has essentially pays someone to go through car accident coverage in the newspaper and print out or clip out the pictures, and realizes that the same people have been at the scene of many accidents and are, in addition to being present, he suspects that they may have something to do with the outcome of these accidents. Um, and so I really enjoyed how Ray Bradbury gives us information. He tells us what the character is thinking, but he still withholds a few things. So he tells us that Mr. Spallner thinks something wrong, but he doesn't tell us that while he's in the hospital, Mr. Spallner, like, is so obsessed with this that he hires somebody. We find that out later when he's going through the newspaper clippings. So is that kind of should I go a little bit
Yeah,
further?
no, I think that's
Okay.
great. Yeah, I just wanted to give some folks like some texture of the actual story, just to like kind of put in everyone's mind's eye what these actual beats look like. And I think that what you've been talking about there is a perfect explication illustration of the fourth beat here, which is
Hmm.
mislabeled one, the investigation. This is kind of the heart of the story, is this person trying to find answers. And yeah, I mean, it's just an iconic engine. Like you brought up true crime. I mean, just like something weird is happening. We need to get to the bottom of it. What's driving him is obsession. And that's drives the story. And so it's just a really built-in engine for the story that really helps, at least kind of what anticipating when I attempt one of these shortly, is that it's like, okay, I'm not going to have to think so hard about what to write next, because it's like, I know what this person wants. They want to unpack a mysterious thing. What are the things they're going to do? In this
Mm.
story, that he looked for clippings for other car accidents. In my story, what are they going to have to do to unpack that?
Yeah.
These next two beats here is when it really gets into kind of short story land, which is to say the payoff. I think so many of the short stories that we've been reading, Sarah, have this setup and then a payoff. And here the payoff is really clear. It's this kind of like, this is also the speculative fiction element of it, where this investigation does not lead us to some creepy people who attend car accidents. These are the undead, and that is kind of the payoff of this story, is that what starts as strange and uncomfortable gets to like implausible but theoretically possible. For example, there's one part in the story where he sees the same woman at a car accident 10 years apart. She's wearing the same clothes. It's like, okay, there's a universe in which that's possible. And then it moves into the supernatural, where we learn by the end of the story that no, that woman is dead. And this is the undead at a car crash. And that's the big reveal. That's the big reveal of the story. And then kind of like the 1-2 punch of this story, whereas I think some stories end in the reveal is the ending. This one is like the price of that knowledge is that he dies and he joins them. So yeah, I mean, I think that's just to kind of talk through it briefly one more time. It's pretty clear. It's like crisis event unlocks something supernatural. We start to notice it. We get obsessed about it. We try to figure it out. We figure it out. It's something insane. And now that we've figured it out, there's a price. So yeah, that was kind of the basic structure of The Crowd. It's the structure of a lot of stories. One other thing I think this story does really well is it has great pace, and we've talked about this. We talked about this in Story Club a little bit, how propulsive this story felt. And in my reread, Sarah, I kind of went back and tried to identify exactly how that was achieved. And it was really came down to like the scene breaks is what I found. Every time there is a break on the page, we fast forward. It's not continuous action. It's like fast forwards. So much is elided, so much is skipped. And by doing that, like the story like just hurdles towards its ending in this really powerful way. So that's my little pace tip. This little jet rocket car, which, if you want your story to feel like that.
Well, anyway, I like that you included that. Ray Bradbury very famously has a quote, and I'm not going to remember it off the top of my head, about, I love writing about gorillas and, race cars and rocket ships, and no one's ever going to take that away from me. And so I really like that you added that here.
Yeah, thanks.
Good job.
Okay, yeah, so I just wanted to I want to kind of kick off into a story writing. Like, my goal for this morning is to have another concept, to sit down and write myself. That is my personal goal for this workshop this morning, is to generate a spine of a story that models this story, The Crowd. But before we just put on a Pomodoro, I wanted to see, and Sarah, I'm just really curious about your thoughts here, but particularly anyone who's here with us today, thoughts on this. Particularly this third question is something that I get bent out of shape about all the time. It's like, well, if it's a formula, it's going to feel formulaic. Almost every single time I do that, I'm like, no, it's not. You wrote a story. But any thoughts on that, or other ways, other concrete, simple ways to think about short story structure? I just wanted to open up the floor a little bit. Any thoughts that you have, Sarah?
I love this. I love talking about structure because, well, I have a lot of thoughts. So thoughts on this structure. In going through your points, I hadn't thought of it this way. You guys, Asa put together this presentation, and I get to enjoy it right alongside you. And so looking at those sort of 6 key moments that he illustrated, the event, the recognition, the obsession, the investigation, the revelation, and the price, it really struck me as, even more than science fiction or horror, it felt like a mystery structure. It felt like a mystery structure to me, except for the very last point, which is the price, which I think brings it over into horror territory. I really, really like that. And that's sort of, you were talking earlier about pacing, and this ties in with structure. And a lot of times I see new writers, kind of worrying about, like, how am I going to pace this? How does that even work? How do I know what to fast forward? Your brain actually, if you read enough, if you watch enough movies, TV shows, whatever it is you prefer to write, your brain will know what's important to the story. Your brain will know what to fast forward through. And even if you feel like your pacing's still not right, try reading it aloud, give it to a friend, workshop it with someone you trust. And pacing tends to be a big problem, but it's also a very easily solved problem for a lot of writers. So I wanted to just throw that out there for pacing. As for structure, you and I work very differently. I feel like you are a lot better at this than I am. I am terrible at working from structure. I've been writing for decades now. I can say that because I'm old. And the only times I ever found myself outlining things was for like school papers where you had to prove that you had an outline before you could start writing your essay. And I really, I sort of developed a resentment for structure. But you going through this allows me to see that this isn't a punishment. It's not a here you have to do this like miserable thing first before you can have creative fun. This is creative and fun in and of itself. And yeah, Mateo says spine somehow sounds rigid.
Mateo,
Um,
Mateo Leon Rodriguez says, to the
yeah.
last question, I initially thought that, but I think spine might be the wrong word.
Mm.
I think a better word is foundation. Every house building is unique, but the foundation is mostly the same. Yeah, spine sounds too rigid for Mateo.
Maybe. I mean, and that's sort of a matter of taste. I mean, I like spine, especially for this story, because our character in the very end has spine damage, and that's sort of what seals his fate. So I like thinking, at least for this Ray Bradbury story, about the spine of the story. It just feels appropriate. But yeah, having a structure to work from, I'm actually really excited to dig into today's exercise because it's going to give me a chance to like hopefully work through and shed some of my preconceived notions about the idea of structure. So,
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I hear that. I mean, for me, it's just so hard to execute a good piece of writing. And so for me, I just kind of like to take turns attacking it at different angles. Once off the seat of the pants, traditional pantser, plotter, and then just kind of come back around and alternate. It's like, okay, free write and then apply an outline and then wreck it. I think it's like, for me, that's what it is like rewriting the same story with a different set of tools and see if that moves me closer. That's kind
interesting.
of how it functions for me. All right, everybody. What's
Well,
next?
can we talk
Yes,
real quick?
yes,
Sorry.
yes.
How do we leverage this formula without being formulaic? I know that's a sticking point for you. Do you want to talk about that for just a second?
Just trust yourself. I mean, again, I think this is like some kind of weird ego complex where it's just like, I want to be a visionary. I don't need to like borrow a structure from Ray Bradbury. And ultimately, I think it's like, discard the idea that it's some kind of like crutch or tool, and it's truly just a place to start. I think for me, that is my way of getting over the hang up. And also, just like so often, and this is important if you're about to do the exercise, if you find yourself writing something amazing that's not to this structure, I mean, just keep writing. I think that's, it's, you just got to listen to yourself, see what's coming out, and react accordingly. Jimmy, thank you so much for your comment. Everything we build needs structure. Among writers, even pantsers write structured stories. Yeah, I mean, Stephen King's famously a pantser, but he also has like read more stories than anyone ever. So, he just those structures I just think are in his like storytelling DNA. So it doesn't have to be outlined. That's my take on the best pantsers.
I agree. I'm going to say I felt a little guilty. I wrote the first season of Girl in Space just as a pantser. So a pantser, if you're not familiar, is someone who writes by the seat of their pants without any sort of guide or structure or spine or outline. And I went through later in analyzing it to write season 2 and realized I had instinctually built in a structure to the story. So again, if you read enough novels, short stories, whatever your medium is, if you watch enough movies, you internalize that structure. You know that about 25% in, you need to have something happen. You know that 50% in, you need to have the character going through, whatever. You understand how those beats work instinctually, even if you can't describe them yourself. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's that I feel that. I feel that. Let's write. Shall we? Is it time to write?
I think so. I think it's always time to write.
It's always time to write. All right. So, this is super cool. And I think it was Jimmy. I think it was you who introduced, shared this idea that he came up with cool nouns for stories. Sarah, do you want to talk about that here?
Yeah. So we're going to do a little bit of a challenge. And again, like with everything we do, it's completely optional, but it's here as a structure to help you if this would be helpful to you. Ray Bradbury's short stories often have a simple object based title. So the scythe, the lake, Jack in the Box. The Lake and Jack in the Box being two of my favorite Ray Bradbury stories. If you would like to read those, I definitely suggest them. So we're going to follow in his footsteps a little bit and choose a story title as a prompt. So we're going to center, just like the crowd, we're going to pick something. You can pick one of these three, or you can come up with your own. But I've provided just three sort of hopefully evocative potential titles here for you to write about. And we're going to write just for a certain amount of time. And what we're going to do is focus on the structure. Oh, good. Bradbury suggested this very thing in Zen and the Art of Writing, Jimmy says. Jimmy, I own that book and I haven't read it yet. It's actually right next to me here on my desk,
Okay, I'm seeing
in
that
the
up.
pile. Yeah. So the three prompts, which you can take or leave, whatever works best for you. Number one, the gate. This can be a physical gate, metaphorical gate, whatever. The sliver, which can be, again, wherever your imagination goes with that. And number three, since we're in spooky season here, the dark town. So feel free to choose one of these three title prompts. Feel free to even use Ray Bradbury's title, The Crowd, and write about a crowd of your own in a different way if you like. But think about those 6 steps that Asa talked about. So starting with the event, the recognition, the obsession, the investigation, the revelation, and depending on if you're writing horror, the price.
Yeah,
Does that sound good?
I love that. I totally love that. And what we'll do here is what I'm going to do is put up a little timer
Perfect.
and we'll go for about 25 minutes, I think is a good time. And then we can, hold on, doing two things at once, talk afterwards and see how it goes, share, there, like I said, there's a Discord that you're welcome to join. You're welcome to not join that. But one little kind of nice thing about the Discord is that you can share larger passages if that's something that you're interested in. So that's the link to the Discord. I will write those 6 steps in the comments and then pin it on the stage
Oh, that's a great idea.
so that we can keep those in the back of our head. And yeah, happy writing, everyone.
Oh,
Any
so
any
excited.
like any final thoughts before we dive in?
Yeah, I encourage you, just as a final thought as we're diving in here, just allow yourself to play. I think that sometimes we take things very seriously. Ray Bradbury very famously enjoyed his work, even when he felt it wasn't, good or particularly reflective of who he was. So I encourage you, just, if you're not interested in working on your work in progress right now, pick one of these titles and just allow yourself to be a little bit free with it. It can be a really fun exercise.
Okay, I'm gonna start the clock. Good luck, everyone.
All right, we're here for you.
How'd everybody do?
Let us know in the comments.
And I
Oh
do
man.
like to encourage everyone at this point that if you're in the zone, just push the
Yes.
mute button and keep going. Oh my God, did that sprint go well? Says Mateo Leon Rodriguez. That is so exciting. I'm so happy to hear that, Mateo. That's great.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, I love to hear that too. Honestly, this was, we've been doing these workshops. We've been doing quite a lot of them. And I always try to do the exercise. And I think this is the one that I've enjoyed the most. I've
Really?
enjoyed the other ones so much, but there was just something really okay. We talk about this paradox of like limitations being freeing. I was very free. I wrote down, these 6 beats and just it was really fun. It was almost like filling out a Mad Lib, I could just put things in for each of these titles. Um, and it was just really fun to I don't know, it took some of the strain out of creating the story.
I love
And it
that.
looks like folks are already sharing some of their work here in our Discord, which I love. Asa,
Yeah,
what about
that's great.
you?
I, you know,
Hey, Kashiki.
so several things about this exercise worked for me. Definitely the inclusion of the title concept.
Oh, good.
You provided those prompts. If you're joining the stream, we just did a writing sprint around Ray Bradbury's short story, The Crowd. Part of I'm just going to share this last little part about the title because I found this to be really helpful. So, anyway, one thing that Sarah suggested was that you can actually, why don't you talk about that while I pull it up? Because I can't do two
Yeah.
things at once. What's the deal with those noun titles?
Yeah. So, often it helps to have something to write a story about. That's one of the things that at least I struggle with. And again, I am not all writers. We are all different. We all struggle with different things. But it really helped me to have a really solid object to focus a story around. So I felt like several pieces of the puzzle were already like in place for me, and I could just jump in and have fun with it. And so, a lot of Ray Bradbury's story titles are very, I don't know, singular object oriented. The Scythe, The Lake, Jack in the Box, some of my favorite stories. And so I provided 3 potential, you don't have to use these, you can if you want, The Gate, The Sliver, and The Dark Town. And I wrote about the sliver, and I'm really happy about it. Oh, good, good. Laura said the title helps so much. Mateo says I used the gate prompt. Good, good. I love this. Yeah, it's really fun. And like, this is something that like maybe you won't get an award-winning story out of it, but just as a writing exercise, purely to um to try out the 6 story beats that Asa lined up for us. Like, this was a really fun and rich experience for me. I shouldn't sound so surprised, but it's like, I had a
Well,
good
you just never
time.
know. Yeah, no. I mean,
Yeah.
that I'm so glad to hear that, and I'm so glad it was helpful for others. So I'm going to go through some of these responses here.
Yeah.
First, just by engaging with this idea of the title, right? So just to say it one more time, apparently Ray Bradbury kept a list of kind of conceptual, abstract nouns that could be cool story titles. So today we talked about his story, The Crowd. And so Sarah, as part of this prompt, came up with several of those. Mateo, I think you said you used The Gate, which is definitely menacing and inspiring. Sarah, or Lore, rather, let me see what yours was, Lore, in regards to the title. Stand by, share an excerpt. Oh, the sliver.
Ooh.
Okay, Laura
Ooh,
did
I
the
did that one
sliver.
too. I'm
So, oh, you
excited to
did the
see
sliver too.
yours.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I came up with one. I did the herd, which I feel good about. Abstract, menacing. All right, so I'm not gonna read everyone's entire excerpt here, y'all, but I'm gonna read bits of excerpts. This is Laura Huntress's first short paragraph. Every night, my brother's skin tried to shed itself from him and run away. Once it made it all the way back to the edge of the property before our grandmother was able to call it back using the ancient Kulnim songs passed from healer to healer in our family line. I got to keep going. She
Hmm.
would then take out a sliver of bone that had been carved into a needle, craved into a needle, carved into a needle. It was from a creature long lost to us and now only alive through folk tales and the remaining magic in its bones. As I and the rest of the family held down his flesh, my brother would slide back inside, and our grandmother would lovingly stitch him back up, cooing and singing songs of comfort to lull his skin to rest again. Woo! 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 That is so good.
That's so good. I I
Tantalizing.
think it exists too. I mean, I don't know if this is like a summary or an outline. I think it works as a piece. It works as a very short flash piece.
Oh, that's fun.
It's
That's fun.
beautiful.
I know we have some flash writers in the Discord also. Mateo Leon Rodriguez sent a excerpt as well. Mateo, I'm going to read the beginning of this. Even when the apocalypse started, the biggest tragedy to me was still my father's passing. We made plans and preparations months before the first demon ever reached his purulent and mangled hand through the earth's crust and onto land. It all went to shit. There were only supposed to be 4 horsemen. There were only supposed to be 5 natural disasters. But worst of all, my father was supposed to be alive longer than 6 weeks.
Oh, I love that. I love the 4, 5, 6. I love the supposed to. I love that you introduce the rules after they've been broken. That's fantastic.
Thank you for sharing that, Mateo. Okay, cool. Sarah, do you want anything you want to share,
Yeah.
or do you want to just talk about your story? Anything?
Yeah, I focused on writing the skeleton because that's generally what I like struggle with, and that's what I wanted to workshop today. So I chose the sliver, and honestly, the story kind of wrote itself with these beats. I'm not used to that, so I have a main character, Julia Holmes, a college student. The event is a dusty museum. She's a college student, takes a class trip to this museum, and a large pane of ancient stained glass is shattered. She idly picks up a shard and it cuts her finger. The recognition, Julia finds that she finds the shard in her jacket pocket a week later after a whole bunch of strange things has been happening to her. The obsession, she starts fixating on this sliver of red glass. Is it connected to these weird goings on? I don't know. This is the real world. How could that be? The investigation, her obsession leads her to research what the stained glass window looked like before it was broken, and finds that there was no red glass initially in this piece of art. The reveal. It was really fun just like going through this. The reveal is another sliver of glass one day works its way out of her hand, and then another. Where are they coming from? They're sort of working their way out of her skin like stitches. And then the price. When a new sliver comes out, something interesting happens, and she is with her friends. And the last line of the story here is she suggests, "Hey, let's go to the museum." So it was just a fun exercise. I had fun playing with this.
I love it. Is this some setup you think you'll pursue? You think you'll keep working on this one?
I mean, yeah, I love it. I love I don't know if a lot of writers do this, but just the more possibilities I have to work with for stories, the happier I am. So yeah, it's right here in my notebook that I carry with me everywhere. So
I love it. I love it. Mateo, for the exercise piece of it. Interesting, Sarah. I honestly didn't look back at the structure after a little bit. That's
that's
great.
good though. That's good though. That means like you found the kernel of what you needed to inspire you to move forward. Like that's fantastic.
Yeah. Gosh, this is great, everyone. I'm so glad. So glad
Well,
everyone had such a positive
what
sesh.
about you? What about
Oh
you? The
gosh.
herd? I want to hear about it.
Yeah. So, just because I want to make it as easy as possible for someone to say, Asa, you write such good short stories. Let's put them in a collection. I've recently decided to kind of let all these stories live on my dad's ranch where I partly grew up, which was just like
Oh.
deep in the woods. It's like so whatever. I just ran around in the woods as a kid a lot. And so I've just kind of started setting stories there.
That's great.
And so my setup is this character who is some kind of middle-aged man. I don't know a ton about him yet, is a father, runs up on the carcass of an elk in the woods. And the thing is, like, there aren't supposed to be elk here. You know, they don't usually get down here. And at first he gets super worried that there's also wolves down here now, because if the elk are here, the wolves are here. But it turns out that there's some really twisted stuff happening where the elk are killing some of their own somehow. And yeah, and then somehow this relates to him, but I haven't sorted all that out yet. But that is like, that's where I got from this exercise,
That's
which I
really
feel
good.
great about. And honestly, like I said before, I think I credit the title in a lot of ways, just like having some kind of abstract, menacing title.
To like focus. It really, for me, it really gave me a focal point, and that was super helpful.
Yeah.
And I love that you're like, well, I haven't had time to flesh this out. We literally had 25 minutes. I love that you're like,
yeah, no, well, yeah, I guess that would be alarming. It'd be alarming if it had, yeah.
You're like, here, I wrote 17,000 words. It's like, are you a time traveler?
Right.
Love it.
Right. Oh, wow. Well, everyone, we appreciate you. If it's your first time seeing Sarah or I, we both have YouTube channels. Find us on YouTube. This is but one of 3 regular live streams that we do here on Wednesdays. We are working our way through this anthology of short science fiction stories. It's like story club with a writer's lens. Similarly, on Thursdays, we're doing the same with a horror short story anthology, The Dark Descent. Fridays, we're doing writing sprints, writing workshops such as these. The community around these live streams is vibrant and growing. If you would like to be a part of it, I will put the information here in the live stream. We'd love to have you.
We would.
Laura says, oh, nice, Asa, your woods can be like how Stephen King stories take place. Kind of, it's just happening that way. I have plenty to write there, so I might as well stay there for the time being. Is kind of where I'm at for some cohesion. Whew. Hey, Mateo, thank you guys so much for this writing workshop. It's been awesome. That makes me so happy, Mateo.
Me too.
I'm really glad to hear that. Y'all, Mateo is on AuthorTube as well. You can find him. He has a channel. He is documenting his projects as well. Anything else, Sarah?
Gosh, yeah. I just want to say thank you for being here. These workshops are a lot of fun, largely because you are here. And it's just been such a delight to go through with these and just be in community, or as Asa says, be in process. Is that the term you use, in process with you?
Yeah.
As we move forward as writers and just really strengthen our craft. And so I'm so grateful for each and every one of you, whether you're here live with us or you're watching the replay. Yes, we are grateful for each and every one of you. I'm really excited to keep going with this workshop series. There will be another one again coming up soon, usually on Fridays. And so,
yeah. And Laura, Mateo, feel free, and anyone else in the Discord, we're responsive. We throw these together, but if there's stuff that you feel would be particularly generative for your work, I'm sure we can find ways to make it generative for ours as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, and we can just continue.
The space horror was a suggestion from our Discord, the space horror workshop that we did. So keep it coming. We're here for it. We're learning alongside you, and it's just a lot of fun.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
All right. Bye for now. Thanks for being here.
Bye.